Hello, Partnering for Vaccine Equity Learning community members and others working on vaccine equity, and welcome to this afternoon's learning event. I'm Bridget Courteau, the Director of Group Learning for the Partnering for Vaccine Equity Learning community, and on behalf of our team at the Urban Institute, thanks for joining us. Today's session will be presented by Communities Rise Together, an initiative that supports vaccination efforts in hundreds of communities across the country through the collaboration of several different organizations. The RISE partners that we'll hear from this afternoon will describe their approach to building trust, civic capacity, and system change. And they'll share real-world examples of the work they're doing to advance an equitable COVID-19 response. Before we go further, I'll do our typical quick review of how this session will work. Next slide. You've all been muted upon entry to the session. Staying on mute unless you are speaking is key to keeping the discussion going without any accidental interruptions. You do have the opportunity to speak your question rather than type it into the Q&A. It's totally your choice. If you want to speak your question, use the raise your hand feature and we will unmute you. If you want to type your question, use the Q&A tab along the bottom of your Zoom taskbar to do this, and you can ask a question at any point during the session. The chat room feature is also open today. We encourage you to chat amongst yourselves as you'd like, but please use good chat room etiquette. And by this, I mean, do not post questions for the speakers in chat because we might not see them there. Please use the Q&A for that. And though this probably goes without saying, please be civil to one another and to our speakers while you're chatting. This event includes live interpretation from English to Spanish. If you'd like to listen to the Spanish language channel, simply click on the globe icon in the Zoom taskbar at the bottom of your screen. And finally, as with all of our learning events, we will post slides and recordings of this event, both in English and in Spanish, on our community website and circulate them through the digests that go out through the CDC managed Adult Vax Program listserv, which all program members should be a part of. If you have technical difficulties at any point during the session, send an email to our community manager's inbox, which is listed here, vaxequitylearning@urban.org. We'll be watching the inbox and we'll try to help you as quickly as we can. Next slide, please. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Somava Saha, one of the leaders of Community Rise Together and the organizer for this event. Currently, Shoma serves as founder and executive lead of Wellbeing and Equity in the World, known as We in the World, and is also executive lead of the Wellbeing in the Nation, or WIN network, which work together to advance intergenerational well-being and equity. For over 20 years, Shoma has worked as a global public health practitioner and as a primary care internist and pediatrician in the healthcare safety net. And she will have the honor of introducing the rest of the RISE speakers to you today. Shoma, we really appreciate you and the RISE team for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon. And with that, I will hand things off to you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. It is such a privilege to be here with all of you and with our partners at Communities Rise Together. While I happen to be the one doing the intro today, I can imagine any one of them stepping in to do so, especially my colleague Abini Bloodworth, who has been truly a co-founder of the RISE Coalition since its beginning. Abini Bloodworth comes from a deep experience of a life's, I think what distinguishes perhaps everybody on this panel, regardless of their age, is that they have had deep and abiding interest in advancing equity. While in this, one thing that brings us together across everybody in the P4V collaborative is that we are all about vaccine equity. I think we've centered the equity and led with that. And I think that's true for everybody who is here as part of Communities Rise, that for decades, long before the COVID pandemic, we centered equity and racial justice and have manifested that in all kinds of different ways. And Bini, I could tell you a huge piece of her backstory, but I will say that she's worked at organizations as diverse as Habitat for Humanity, the NAACP, the Center for Popular Democracy, and now is the CEO of Chromatic Black and a co-founder of Chromatic Black, a group of 10,000 artist activists, and you'll hear how they're contributing to rethinking how we approach this entire idea of vaccine hesitancy on a grounding of well-being and equity. And then we're delighted to actually hear from our community that's showing us what it looks like to embody equity and trust building in relationships with Lisa and Lisa Cruz from Red Shoe Inc., Jack Cruz, a community organizer, and Dr. Pam Herr, who I think of as a hero for reaching out to communities that often don't experience the same access, whether it's the Hmong community that she is from, or other communities, in a way that builds their power and voice and strength and reshapes the system. So with that, it's my privilege to jump in. Let's go to the next slide. Welcome to all of my colleagues. Just a few words about RISE from me. RISE stands for Reach, Immunizations, and System Change for Equity. We begin with the premise that an equitable recovery is built on trust, that if we expect trust as a public health system, as a system, we have to start by giving trust and by being trustworthy, and by focusing this response, this effort around COVID, around building relationships and building systems to address the underlying causes of health inequities. We're hoping to create the conditions for everyone to thrive. If you go to the next slide. Now, I don't have to tell most of the people on this call this, you know this, but what we know is that across the country, legacies of generations past, in this case, redlining in Chicago, and patterns of exclusionary zoning and many others, show up in a pattern of social vulnerability. If you look at the right-hand side in this map drawn by the CDC, you see the dark spots are the places that in 2016, the CDC said were the most vulnerable. On the left-hand side is the map of COVID cases, and COVID, those green dots are COVID deaths. And you can see what a difference there is. If you go to the next slide, we tend to think of legacies as things of the past, but I want to invite us to think that equity is a verb. It's a decision we make about how we do this response today, and the extent to which we center everything our communities need to keep them safe, and for us to be trustworthy with them. The left-hand side is that same map of Chicago of COVID cases, and you can see that South Side and the west of Chicago is where cases and deaths are hardest hit. You can see, though, that the number of Paycheck Protection Program loans in the middle graph and the number of early vaccines go to the top northeast corner of Chicago. And that suggests that in a system where if you don't apply a very specific equity first lens to the response, this happens to be Chicago, but I could have shown you a map anywhere else in the country. We just spot checked 5 and it was 5 for 5. What you begin to see is these maps that people who have more privilege will access those resources preferentially. And what we know is that Black businesses got left out of paycheck protection loans. Most minority businesses did. Most immigrant businesses did. And that's going to keep being the case unless we put something in place. We are the stewards today that are drawing or not drawing the red maps of the response of the red lines of the response in this pandemic. So I want to invite all of us to think beyond what it means to just get a shot in an arm, to instead say, what does it take for us to do this, to take every one of our opportunities to build equity in all of the conditions that people need to be able to live through this moment. And that if we can actually do that, we might actually get to people to trust us to get the vaccine out. Does that approach work? If you go to the next slide. We were asked by, what we know in places where we've taken that approach, like Delaware, is that by addressing people's well-being more holistically, not just as a vaccine effort or not just to reach out for COVID testing, that if you can actually ask people what they need to support them in their well-being and connect them, what you see is in the months of the pandemic, in the state of Delaware, they reached out to all of their people with mental health and addictions that they thought were most likely not to thrive, many of whom were predominantly Black and Brown. what you begin to see is that initially the percent of people suffering went up from 3.5% to 25% in the early days of the pandemic. And then they began the initiative to actually meet people's needs where they are, to connect them with food, with a new 12-step group if they've lost the one that they went to with housing, with mental health supports. And as they reliably connected people, they got to see the percent of people suffering come right back down. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of inspiring to be able to affect that. Now, you might say that's just because of policies nationally, right? Like we passed a stimulus bill and all of that. Well, actually, they hadn't by this point in the pandemic. Most other places, that suffering curve was still pretty high. But the more important thing is if you look back at 2020 and you see what happened, what you see is that in Delaware, where they were able to see that people were struggling with housing, take over 3 Sheratons in their geographies, in their counties, and house people who are homeless, begin to deliver mental health services there. They saw that people were struggling with food and began giving out Narcan at food banks and supporting the food banks, forgetting where the money exactly was coming from, but actually pooling their resources across efforts, across agencies. They began creating the conditions for people to be safe. And that meant that when the CDC looked back at the overdose data in 2020, across the country, overdose rates went up by 23%. In Delaware, they only went up by 3.6%. And that's what it means to take that well-being approach to people. Now, as they did that, they said, how can we make these systems normal? And so things that they've done that they've sustained is they have a new diversion policy signed off by their attorney general and with the chiefs of police, so that instead of incarcerating people with mental health or overdose issues, they're actually getting them into mental health treatment and stabilizing them so that they never get that criminal record that keeps them in a cycle of poverty for generations more. Next slide. In our approach to COVID, part of what we've said is that we need to begin to approach COVID as a syndemic, which requires a coordinated response across mental, physical, social, and spiritual well-being together. This corona crisis will redraw those redlining maps of the past century if we don't apply an equity-first approach to the response. Third, we have an opportunity today to use this as a moment to build community-based infrastructure to support people's well-being, drawn from the communities that are most affected by inequities, and that gives living wage jobs back to them. Fourth, that we can leverage and build local webs of trust. And fifth, that we can use this as an opportunity to chart a path toward long-term renewal. If we don't address the long-term issues now, if we don't see that you should never waste a burning platform, that this is a moment to actually lean into what's possible, that we actually can't change things for the long run. In fact, crises are often the best opportunity to reshape systems, just as they did in Delaware around incarceration. So think about what are the systems that are in play that are creating inequities, and what could you do? This brief began when Dr. Marcela Nunez-Smith asked us to write this as she was taking on the chairmanship of the COVID Equity Task Force and the transition team, and has continued to inform our work as a RISE. If you go to the next slide. So RISE came together first by saying, let's build an unprecedented collaboration among organizations that can see this more systemic lens and can apply it in their context, bringing a diverse set of skill sets together and reaches. We, at the Center for Popular Democracy, brought community organizers, a non-traditional workforce that was really interested in saying, what could we've all spent all this time trying to get out the vote, how can we help get out the vaccine? Or artist activists, the 10,000 artist activists that Chromatic Black represents, who said, how can we use this as a moment to bring our communication expertise, but also to reshape the master narrative, to older adult programs like Meals on Wheels of America and the National Councils on Aging or the Migrant Clinicians Network. This RISE came together long before, over a year before there was any money on the table, to say, what does it look like for those of us who have been advancing an equitable response, who have that deep interest in building equity to do that. And that became what defined the way we approached our efforts. If we go to the next slide. Our pillars of our action are to focus on building trust through trustworthy messengers, to deepen civic capacity in everything that we're doing, and to transform systems. And while I could tell you a lot about that, we're going to illuminate that with the stories of the panelists who are here with us today. If you go to the next slide. Just in case you were wondering, well, can you actually get anybody vaccinated with that kind of effort? I will tell you that these 10 partners have reached in the last 9 months into over 25 states with 200 plus communities in action, have directly or indirectly reached over 40 million people, got it over 137,000. I have to update these numbers for this month, which we're probably close to about 150,000 people vaccinated in some of the hardest to reach places. So I think that's what differentiates, is our focus is not the easy wins. Our focus is populations and communities where vaccine hesitancy has been high and our system trust has been low. And then we've connected over in the process over 195,000 people with their basic needs for their life, by recognizing that if we can come into proximity and relationship with what they need, they might be more willing and ready and able to engage in something like vaccinations. Go to the next slide. And then the other piece that we've been all committed to doing together is taking the lessons in this moment to chart that path toward long-term resilience. This is a part of a springboard for equitable recovery and resilience that's informing a federal plan around what long-term resilience looks like. Go to the next slide. With that, I'd love to invite my friend and colleague, Abini Bloodworth, to bring her voice into the room to share everything they've learned in thinking about vaccine hesitancy. In some ways, parts of RISE began around the vaccine equity efforts, as Abini and I were talking one day about what does this look like for the Black community, and Abini saying, I don't know how I feel about this vaccine, Shoma. I have a lot of concerns. Abini, can you share what you all have done and how you've engaged as a group that recognizes how much hesitancy there is and how there isn't a lot of reason for trust, but how you've worked to build trust through these efforts?
Absolutely. Thank you, Shoma. And Bridget, we're so happy to be here and to share with all of you. So I am the co-founder of an organization called Chromatic Black. We are 10,000 artists, activists, cultural producers, technologists, and journalists coming together to reclaim story as a public common. When the pandemic hit, we began to think about internally how we were individually grappling with the pandemic and our own vaccine hesitancy in pockets in the organization. And then how could we support the community? And so as a part of the collaborative, we had 63 communities across mostly southern states. What we did was we brought together, we animated what we call the existing civic infrastructure of the African American community. So we had the Omega Psi Phi, we had Delta Sigma Theta, we had the NAACP Next Gen. We brought together Power of Mississippi. There was the Health Equity Coalition in Iowa. We brought together filmmakers, community organizers, grandmothers, young people into a conversation about the why and what messaging could work. And so when we declared ourselves Switzerland, and so we approached this that we were neither vaccine, pro-vaccine nor anti, so that we could maintain and be hypersensitive to the fear and to the concern of many in our community. The messaging that came out was where people resonated and where there was commonality was to wrap the campaign in love. And so the moniker Keep Black Love Alive campaign came to be. We decided to focus on 3 kind of subsets of the vaccine community, which were healthy independents, indifferent individuals, and reluctant vaxxers. And we launched a listening tour. So we launched a listening tour across the 63 communities to capture what we call COVID love stories, COVID truth stories, in an attempt to preserve cultural memory during this time. As we were facilitating the tour, we had on the ground partners that were in communities that were also organizing and facilitating pop-up clinics and community events, some in person and some virtual, that were coupled with this listening tour. So I want to play you a video of one of our folks. This is Oliver Banks, and he's describing what Keep Black Love Alive is.
Greetings, I am Oliver Banks. I am the Health Initiative Chairperson of the Beta Lambda Lambda chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We are living in trying times. The pandemic has wreaked havoc on our communities and has revealed a fragile public health infrastructure and underscored a need for community care. What is encouraging is we've been here before and have survived. And while there are many things we do not know, there are things we do know. What we do know is that we are not immune to the truth decay that permeates our society. To combat the misinformation and disinformation that is intentional and deliberate and destructive, I invite you to join me in keeping Black love alive. Keep Black Love Alive is a person-to-person national storytelling and story-catching campaign. We are collecting our cultural truths and cultural love stories to preserve cultural memory. We are conducting temperature checks of each other and of our community to assess our collective well-being. This is information that will be used to inform our health, equity, advocacy agenda in 2022. We're launching a call center for us, staffed by us, to answer questions and to serve as a resource to connect our people to health. We're getting smart about the facts and about how to take care of ourselves and each other. This is not clinical, this is community. I invite you to join me in being a well-being advocate. To get started, go to www.keepblacklovealive.org. Complete the wellness check and upload your truths and love stories. Drop me a note on how to become a strategic partner at www.keepblacklovealive.org.
So that was Oliver. The Omega Psi Phi already have health equity chairs. What we did is we partnered with them. They came on board. They've been really, really helpful. Another example is like the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. They already had, they're deeply organized. So all we did was just animate an existing infrastructure that exists and provide folks with tools and resources and support. I want to play one more video of an example of a story that's captured in the field. These are the Collins.
All through this pandemic. The greatest love story has got to be back to my wife.
When my husband got sick, when you hear the word COVID, you just think, oh my God, what is going on, you know?
And my daughters, they really wanted to help me more, but I was afraid that they was gonna catch me. But my wife was like, you can say what you want to say, I'm gonna be with you.
He had to be bathed, he had to go to the restroom. He couldn't some days even get up. I was the caretaker who went in and took care of my husband no matter what.
I knew she loved me, but this right here was like, okay, she really loves me.
We got to do whatever we can to stay safe, but show that we're here for each other through thick and thin. Love first.
So what the stories allowed us to do were, one, to listen. So we have stories across a gamut. We collected 500 stories. What they did is, one, they facilitated an opportunity to be in communication, to deepen folks' literacy. Like any community organizer, we were like, let's provide people with the best, most up-to-date information that we had, and then trust people to make decisions that were in their best interest. It has been a privilege and a humbling experience this last year. I have personally learned a lot, and we feel good about the work that we've been able to do. I think we're now like 6,700 people vaccinated. The campaign has also launched a commitment of the 100 movement leaders that organized across the country to actually focus on the root causes of the reason why we have a fragile public health infrastructure, to inform an advocacy agenda that they can power in this year. And so we've taken something, so there have been some unintended consequences and gifts to this pandemic, and I appreciate the opportunity to share. Shoma, it's back to you.
Thank you so much, Abini. It's, for me, so powerful when we realize what we need to do is shift the story to be about keeping love alive, and so powerful to see the way in which you went about it. I'd love to hear from our friends in Wisconsin. Tell us what that's looked like for you, because I think the thing you share in common is that deep sense of love and community building and trust building in the way in which you do your work.
Absolutely, and I think we can go ahead to the next slide. So many of the comments that were made today really mirror what our actions are here in Northeast Wisconsin. So you'll notice I didn't say vaccination event, I said community event. And we really focus on, and I heard this as well, showing the love when it comes to our community events throughout our region. And most recently, we had a community event with accessible vaccinations, which was special in itself because it was student-led. You can see my son Jack Cruz is on this call, along with 2 other students at the same high school, wanted to bring a vaccination community student-led event to their school. And if you know anything about Wisconsin in general, and perhaps specifically Northeast Wisconsin, it's a little bit challenging in this climate that we live and work and go to school in. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we had 3 students, and this is Isabella and Sophia and Jack, and a dog and a cat, I believe, in the picture as well. And this is them before they were actually literally going out to pound the pavement, is what we say. And they have flyers in hand that they developed themselves. Along with, they also did surveys to their student population at their high school. They did the whole project from beginning to end, all the way to hosting 2 student-led community vaccination events at their school. Again, in a climate that is not all the time very welcoming to what we're trying to do. So we hear often, be the change you want to see. These kids certainly were taking the initiative and being the change they wanted to see with their fellow students at their high school. And again, in a climate that isn't always receptive to perhaps vaccinations and reaching students of color. Next slide, please. And Jack, I encourage you to pipe up during this slide in particular. We experienced a number of challenges when it came to being the change we wanted to see. I will be frank in saying that our first meeting with the principal did not go as expected. That individual was less than welcoming and was also disparaging in comments to the point where you're kind of like standing back like, did I just hear that correctly? So there was little to no support from the school. And Jack, if you want to pipe up a little bit about the challenges you felt.
Yeah, so a lot of my friends aren't vaccinated and other classmates. So I made sure to like really inform myself because at first when I was telling them about it, recommending they get vaccinated and stuff, they were very hesitant on it. And they didn't really know where to go. So I made sure to inform myself on where to get it and why it's important, and I really made sure to go to each student, and because as someone that's not an adult, another student, it can be a little more relatable for them, and I just made sure like I answered any of their questions they had, and tried to express that like to see the vaccine not as a threat, as like an opportunity to give back to your school and your community, but at the same time I had a lot of adults who weren't staff at the school who weren't very supportive of it. When we were trying to put up flyers and posters and stuff, we got told we camped a lot, and we actually had to go a little bit higher up in the rankings to get permission to be able to put up even flyers around the school. And yeah, so that was definitely one of the hardest parts about it.
And I'll bring up another case in point. Typically when we host these community-led vaccination events at an area site, we are supported and are able to drop off our supplies ahead of time. And we were told very strictly that we could only drop off our supplies like literally 30 minutes before the event was supposed to open up. And we could not store our supplies on site ahead of time to make it easier for setup. And again, keep in mind that there were a lot, it wasn't just Jack and Isabella and Sophia, there were also student volunteers as a part of this event. So we were meeting a lot of resistance. And Jack, I always laugh because you told me like you went around maybe some other administrators who said we couldn't get items on hand. Do you want to pipe up a little bit there?
Yeah. So one of the things we do at these clinics is we have a lot of baby diapers that we give out to parents. And my car was filled to the brim with, I think, probably 10, 12 full boxes of diapers. And so what I tried to do is during lunch, I actually went to the library where we were holding the event. I didn't, go to like the principal. And when I went to the librarian, she was super supportive. I laid out what exactly I needed to do. And she helped me as fast as we could just to pull my car around, get all the diapers unloaded. So then at least we didn't have to worry about that later on. But also we were very worried that like the principal was going to yell at us or something for it. Yeah.
So overall, just that tone, we weren't feeling the love, we weren't feeling supported, but nonetheless, we went ahead with that first event with amazing results. And it is just so special to have students lead this initiative, really focused on reaching students of color. So the first event, despite the challenges, and these were just a few, went great, but we did speak up. We took our challenges within the school district to actually the assistant superintendent to have a very heartfelt conversation about the students not feeling supported, as the community organizers not feeling supported. It was just like one challenge after another, but we were committed to doing what we had set out to do, which was to provide accessible vaccinations in a community-wide setting. So we did voice those concerns, and by the time we got to the second event, we had engagement from leadership all the way down and all the way down, all the way up. And it was a completely different feeling event, Jack. And I think you felt that as well.
Yeah. We had, all of a sudden my teachers who I had told them about this forever, but there was never any communication from higher up to them. All of a sudden they were coming up to me and they were like, oh, well, this is so cool what you're doing and stuff. And it was just like, it felt completely different than what I had been used to.
Yeah, so it was just, again, another lesson for us, the students and the community organizers. Speak up and make sure that your voices are heard. What else? Any other challenges, Jack, that we overcame, or you want to talk about the second event?
Yeah, so, you know, we had those original challenges, then me, myself, Isabella, and Sophia, the other two girls in the photo there. This assistant superintendent met with us, and he basically was like, you know, whatever you need, we'll help you with it. And we still did get some like pushback and stuff with some things. They allowed us the day before the event to unload some of the stuff that wasn't, you know, medical equipment and whatnot, and have a safe space for it to store it. But then the day of the clinic, we still did have, they wouldn't let us in until 3:35 when school ends at 3:40. So it's right as the buses were there. But it definitely was a lot better than the previous one.
And with that, thank you, Jack. So we had members of the school board show up at the second event, literally had tears in their eyes when she looked around the room and saw the students' participation and the students leading this event. We also had volunteers from the Black Student Union on site as well. So there was just a totally different feel from the first time around to the second time around. And we had so many parents come in and say, I didn't even know we were doing this. I had no idea that there was another event. So again, just complete turnaround from the first event to the second event. And most importantly, making sure that the students felt supported in their efforts in reaching students of color and their family. Next slide, please. Dr. Pam?
Yes, so thank you, Lisa and Jack. You know, that was quite an experience that we had. Just going back, I want to kind of set the tone for the work that we are doing. We are a coalition called the Multicultural Coalition. And when we first started, we really were a communications committee that wanted to, at the very onset of COVID-19 and the uncertainty and the fears that existed with COVID-19, wanted to come in and make sure that we communicated effectively with all the members of our communities, including those most marginalized and oppressed in our communities. And so it was very important for us to be able to talk with them, not to them, not to make their voice our voice and our voice their voice, but to really be there to listen to them and the needs that they had. So we came together with the thought of how do we reach the most vulnerable groups of our community, vulnerable families with so many obstacles, so many barriers, and really embraced what it meant to do the work of equity. And the work of equity is to break down barriers, to figure out what they are and to be able to break them down. So in this situation, it was really interesting, and it was very eye-opening because we had encountered a lot of different barriers in the past. And when you think about the different communities of color, everybody had their own definition of what COVID was or what it meant to them. They had different levels of understanding of COVID, different levels of understanding what they needed to do or not do. And so we wanted to collectively come together to do an educational piece through the grassroots piece, right? So we brought in different influencers and advocates within those communities that knew those communities, that were boots on the ground, that worked with them day in and day out. We brought them in and we really came together to create a model in which we can start to create trusting relationships with these different groups. And for us, it's more than just COVID. COVID brought us together because there was an opportunity for all of us to be able to, brainstorm and be able to support each other around the whole COVID piece. But our goal is so much bigger and broader than that. It's all in the context of equity. And so in that context of equity, we developed a lot of pop-up vaccination clinics. And so we've had opportunities to work with different organizations and all of that. And we're very particular about which organizations we do partner with and collaborate with, because we know that while we in our community sometimes are ready to engage, that certain organizations are not ready to engage with us. And so that was something that we were very intentional about. And so in this particular incident or situation, we were excited to be part of this student-led initiative. We felt that this was a great piece of who we wanted to evolve into, which is to really pass this work of equity onto future generations. right? Generations beyond us, to create those foundational pieces and to be able to work with the students and to help shift their lenses in terms of what equity meant. So in this situation, we learned a lot of things. We learned that engagement from the host organization is critical. We knew that already, but especially in this situation, not only the engagement of that host, organization with us, but with our students as well too. And we also realized that after some of these comments were made, we were very concerned about the students that went to school there or our students of color that attended that school, because we realized after this happened and talking to other influencers and other individuals within that school that many of our students of colors, their voices have never truly been heard, and that their voices are continuing to be oppressed and marginalized. And as a result of that, we welcome the opportunity to be part of the solution of not just for these particular students, but for the whole environment of that school and that particular leader within that school, to have a conversation and to be able to do this in a way that we can truly enact change that's sustainable, right? So instead of backing away and saying, okay, it is what it is, we did. To Lisa's point, we met with the administrators and really talked about, yes, this is one piece of it, but the deeper piece of it, right? To show us a piece of systemic change. What does that look like? How do we impact that? Our group is very committed to the underlying causes of everything that we encounter, all the inequities that we see, and to really embrace these opportunities to make a sustainable change. And so that was very powerful. The other piece that was even more powerful was that when we came together to meet with the superintendent of schools and the assistant sup, we came together collectively as communities of color. We had representatives from the Hmong community. We had representatives from the Latinx Hispanic community. We had discussed the situation with the Black African American community as well too, although they weren't able to join us for the last minute meeting that we had, but they also voiced their concerns and their support in everything that we're doing. And what we learned is that, and what we've learned throughout this process of the work that we've done with COVID-19 and the pop-up clinics, the education piece, as well as the vaccination piece, is that one voice is very powerful. All of us collectively coming together and having a voice and being able to share that voice collectively is very powerful to our communities, and what that can do for us as a community collectively, as opposed to each individual group going in. Because what we learned is that a lot of the needs that we have are very similar. We may have challenges in different areas, but the underlying piece of our needs are all connected to each other, and that we needed to first connect internally for all of us as the different, communities of color within our communities, to be able to understand each other, and then to be able to come together and create one voice that can be elevated and can be shared with the community at large. So this experience that we had really was able to bring us all together and realize that although we've made progress within our community, that there is so much more progress that needs to be made. And for all of us, it's really not just talking the talk, but it's about walking the walk with this, and also to look at the experiences, right? In all of our pop-up clinics, it's not about the numbers that come through, but it's the experience of what they encounter when they come to us. And I'm really excited to share with you that, in the last couple of months, we've been doing this work. We've done close to 40 pop-up clinics. We've been doing this since, the onset of COVID. And so it's been about 2 years now. And what we're starting to see is that trust relationship that we really wanted to create with these communities of color and families who are the hardest to reach, that we are now getting influencers within their communities that normally would never approach us or have a conversation with us. They are coming to us and they're asking for our help because they believe that we can truly make a difference, because our coalition isn't about just talking about things, but we are taking actions and we are breaking down barriers, whatever they are. I always joke with Lisa, we're going to go over, under, around, whatever it takes. We're going to make this happen. And we are going to follow through on our promises to these communities when they share with us the things that they are going through, that we live up to our promises to them. Because as I always say to our groups all the time, trust is always ours to lose. And so when we are given trust and it is ours to lose, then we become very intentional about how we build this and how we create something systemic and sustainable so that it impacts every aspect of our community. So thank you for your time today. Shoma?
Every time I hear about the way in which you do your clinics, whether it's having the food from each coming from minority businesses in the area, or the engagement of faith communities and the way you do, I mean, it just illuminates that broader piece of what could we do together, all the way to speaking with your state Medicaid director to help shift the data for the state as a whole around equity. There's so much that to be learned from each of you. I'd love to open it up for the audience for Q&A. What questions and answers do you all have as you're listening to these amazing presenters? I don't see anything in the Q&A yet. Is that right, Bridget? So if not, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and ask a question as the audience comes in. So as you, Abini, let's start with you. As you think about this work, reflecting back, on this last 9 months of the journey, and then thinking forward to the ones that are coming up, what do you know now that you didn't at the beginning of the journey that were just big ahas for you? And what will you do differently in the next phase of the journey as a result?
What do we know now that we didn't know then? I think one is having stronger relationships with how we knew going in how thin the public health infrastructure is. However, we were surprised at how, in some places, how difficult it was to get vaccine partners on the ground, especially in some of our most rural communities. So we were surprised about that, and I think also the importance of the learning path, to spend more time helping people understand, not taking for granted that the community health workers were all coming together with a baseline of information. And, we received some funding where we were tasked to try to execute within 6 months. It turned out to be 9 months. But just that base, that deepening the literacy, that time, moving forward is, I think we'd spend more time getting people prepared, right? And two, as I listened to Lisa, some of the resistance was really charged, right? We launched a call center, Shoma, and to be able to reach people in communities that didn't have a strong kind of civic infrastructure. What we learned is we were doing the phone calls. We've now shifted to integrate texting as a tool that we think it'll be a lot more effective. So those were some of the things that I wish we'd known when we started.
Great, thank you, Abini. This next question is from Callie. And Callie asks, is there any information that was shared online or with the larger media that was conducive to engaging teens and students about the vaccine? I think that's for our Northeast Wisconsin team.
Jack, Dr. Pam, if you want to chime in. Actually, the students, we invited a number of members of the media to come on site, if I'm understanding the question correctly. So there were a number of stories that were done. And in fact, in that last slide that we showed, we had the cutest little girl being interviewed for TV. Was she 6, Dr. Pam?
Yes.
And she got her vaccination that day and was amazing. So typically with all of our events, we invite the media and they cover them like crazy. The media has been super supportive. That's one of our strategic pieces, is to elevate communities of color through the work that we're doing. So we're very intentional about who's doing those interviews, inviting the media to help tell the story. We see members of the media who they themselves are individuals of color covering the stories. So it's like another aspect of the work that we're doing to really highlight what's taking place in our communities.
Lisa, Beanie might call that shifting the master narrative, right? About who's proactive in leading the change. What does it mean? It's and you're showing that in real time, what that looks like. And I love that you see your vaccine pop-up clinics, not just as a pop-up clinic, but as an opportunity to shift the narrative, to get people baby diapers if that's what they need, but also to change relationships within the community and with the media.
And, and another piece of this that is really, I think, Shomi, that you mentioned this too. So when we have our events, we make sure that we're also supporting organizations that are owned by community members of color. So we have empanadas, we have shrimp chips, and we're making sure that we're including those businesses in our efforts. It's not what I would typically say is an incentive. It's part of that community building. Come and break bread with us. We also have the diaper bank supporting our efforts. We also have weighted blankets for children. We have stuffed animals for children. And we're really getting tighter in terms of that experience for the child, including children with special needs. So that is another area that we're really tightening up as well.
Mm-hmm. And what's really unique is that our focus is really on the communities of color and those different pieces that have never truly been addressed within those communities, right? And so these are community events. They're not just pop-up clinics. We don't call them pop-up clinics. We call them community events because we have so many partners that are involved in all of that. And so when the students came to us and wanted to create this, it was really through our model of the community clinic and how they could engage different pieces. And I'm so proud of the students because, you know, they really, instead of just staying within their groups and being comfortable with, you know, meeting with students that looked like them and thought like them and all of that, they reached out to the other student groups, the other student organizations that wanted to engage them and had conversation with them. We had the student surveys translated into different languages for the population at that school. Those were very intentional things that the students thought about as they were thinking about how they could be more inclusive. So it's really, you know, a wraparound type of event. And the students were very involved in every aspect of it. And we you know, really allowed them to lead those different pieces. What would you like to do here? What do you think is needed here? All of those things to help them think, right, about the things that are needed when you are looking at communities that may be more marginalized or oppressed, as well as to create an event that's open to everybody in the public. And so one of the things I want to share with you is that although we do outreach in those communities, our community events are open to the public as a whole. Everyone is welcome to our event. It's not just a particular group. Whatever we have, we give away to everybody that comes to our community events, from snow pants to snow boots. When we were told that people or families within that particular area that we were doing the community event in needed certain things, we came up with those things, and people from the community came out, from stuffed animals to food to diapers, all the different things. So it is an event And it's an experience. Everyone that walks through that door is greeted at least 4 or 5 times from the volunteers. We thank them for coming. After they get vaccinated, we clap, we cheer with them. We have a little photo op thing with a background that they can take a picture that says, I got vaccinated. You know, we try to think of everything that we can to make it a community experience, because that's really the movement forward is what we are looking at, and that movement needs to be inclusive of everybody. So we are creating that piece.
There's somebody in the chat, Kathy asked, are you changing the message? And what I'm hearing from all of you is actually love, trust, community. Those are long-standing messages that we all need to be about, not just in what we say, but in what we do and how we do it. And I want to acknowledge Andres. I'll respond to your question in the chat. I want to give the last 2 minutes to Bridget and her team back. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Shoma, and thanks to the whole team. This was great. It's really inspiring to hear about these kind of on-the-ground examples. And I know this is the type of information our learning community is interested in that they can then take back to their communities. I've also been thinking how we might tap into the Wisconsin team's event planning expertise for other community events or for other learning community events potentially. I know you're very, very busy. So just as a final, I know we are starting to lose people who probably have 3 o'clock. So if you wouldn't mind before we close, if you're still on the line, just filling out this quick satisfaction poll for us, we'd really appreciate it. And on the next slide, we have just a couple little plugs here for those who are part of Partnering for Vaccine Equity. If you aren't using our website, it's never too late to start. There's all sorts of things you can do there. Peer directory, a discussion board, our event calendar, our resource library. So wanted to encourage you to use our learning community website. And we have just added a feature, which is we noticed lots of folks were promoting events on our discussion board. So we added a feature where you can actually submit your event to us. And after a quick review for completeness, we will add it to our centralized event calendar, which up to now has just been the events that we organize and promote and sort of our official learning community events. But we're going to start adding events that you submit to us that you might want to promote as a learning community member. So wanted to get those 2 plugs in there. And I know we're a little bit past the hour. So I just want to end by thanking our spectacular speaker team. We really appreciate it. And thanks to you, Shoma, and to PHI Rise for helping to organize and carry out this event. Thanks, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you for having us.